Hey everyone, I need to ask you something important right off the bat. Have you checked your social security statement lately? Because if you're like most folks who rely on the monthly check to make ends meet, especially with everything costing more these days, what's happening this month could really catch you off guard. There's a major change coming out of Washington, and I don't mean some small policy adjustment that gets buried in the news. I'm talking about something that could hit your wallet directly, starting right now in June. Under new rules from President Trump's administration, up to 2 million people could see their Social Security checks reduced. And no, this isn't some distant future issue we're discussing. We're talking about right now, this month, June 2025. And it's mostly happening to folks who already don't have much to spare. Before we dive into the details, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you noticed any changes in your Social Security payments recently? Are you worried about potential cuts to your benefits? Your experiences help shape the content I bring to you, so please share your thoughts below. Now, why is this happening? There are two main reasons, and both of them involve the government coming after money they say you owe them. One involves student loan debt, and the other has to do with something called overpayments. Both might sound a little technical, but don't worry, I'm going to break this down in plain English, so you can see exactly how this affects you or someone you know. And if you find this kind of breakdown helpful, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss future updates that could impact your finances. Let's start with the first group that's getting hit hard, people who are behind on federal student loans. Yeah, even if you're over 60. Actually, especially if you're over 60. Here's something that might shock you. Over 450,000 Americans aged 62 and older are currently in default on student loans. That means they haven't made payments in a while, and the government is treating that debt as seriously overdue. Maybe they went back to school later in life, or maybe they co-signed loans for their kids or grandkids. Either way, they're on the hook, and the government wants its money. Here's what's really important to understand. During the pandemic, these folks were protected. No money was being taken from their Social Security checks to cover student loans. But that protection ended in May, and now in June, the collections are back with a vengeance. So here's how this actually works in practice. The federal government uses something called the Treasury Offset Program. Under that program, they can legally take up to 15% of your Social Security check if you're in default on a federal student loan. Let that sink in for a moment. If you get the average Social Security check, which is about $1,976 a month, that's almost $300 gone every single month, automatically. Now imagine if you're not getting the average amount. Maybe you're getting $1 to $100 or less each month. For many folks, especially people who retired early or didn't have high-paying jobs throughout their careers, that's not unusual at all. If they take 15% of that, you're looking at $180 or more disappearing from your check every month. That could be your grocery money, your gas money, or your prescription medication money, just gone like that. And here's something else you might not know. They don't need you to agree to this. You get a warning letter 30 days before the garnishment starts. Just 30 days. That's it. Before the pandemic, they used to give people 65 days notice, but now the timeline is shorter and the pressure is higher. They will leave you with at least $750 per month. That's the legal minimum they have to leave you. But let's be honest here. $750 a month isn't exactly livable in today's economy. Rent alone can eat up most or all of that in many cities across the country. So even though they technically can take everything, what's left might not be enough for you to actually get by. And that brings us to the second group of people getting hit by these changes. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I didn't go to college, or I never took out student loans, you still might want to stick around, because this second part is just as serious. And this time, it could apply to you, even if you've never had student debt in your life. It's called a clawback, and basically, that's when the Social Security Administration says they paid you too much money in the past. Maybe it was their mistake, or maybe your income changed and didn't get updated in their system fast enough. Either way, they've decided you owe them money, and now they're coming to collect it. Sometimes these overpayments happen due to delays in reporting changes in your situation. Other times, it's completely on their end, a computer glitch, a processing error, or just bureaucratic confusion. But regardless of whose fault it is, they've decided you owe them money, and now they want it back. As of right now, over 1.5 million Americans are facing this exact issue. That's retirees, disabled workers, even surviving spouses, people who rely on their monthly benefits just to keep the lights on and put food on the table. And in many cases, they're not just taking a little bit back. Under the new rules, they can withhold up to 50% of your Social Security check until the overpayment is completely repaid. Let me say that again because it's really important. Half of your monthly Social Security payment could be gone, just like that. And here's what's really frustrating about this whole situation. A lot of people didn't even know there was an overpayment until their check was already reduced. There's no payment plan offered up front, no phone call to discuss options, just less money showing up in your bank account and a letter that arrives later explaining why. During the Biden administration, they had a rule that capped the clawback rate at 10%. That gave people some breathing room to figure things out and still have most of their money to live on. But now, the Trump administration has raised it to 50%. And originally, they even considered going back to 100%, which would have meant taking your entire check until the debt was paid off. Thankfully, they walked that back after realizing how devastating that would be for people. But 50% is still an enormous amount of money for someone living on a fixed income. So what can you actually do if this is happening to you, or if you're worried it might happen? Let's talk about student loans first. If you're in default on federal student loans, the best thing you can do is reach out to your loan servicer. I know that might feel overwhelming or confusing, especially if you haven't dealt with this stuff in years, but it's much better to be proactive than to wait until they start taking money from your Social Security check. You can ask about programs like income-driven repayment, which might lower your monthly payment to something more manageable. In some cases, it might even lower your payment to zero, depending on your current income situation. You can also ask about deferment, forbearance, or loan consolidation. These options can help pull your loans out of default status and stop the garnishment from happening altogether. But here's the thing, the clock is ticking. Once that Treasury offset starts, it becomes much harder to stop the process. Now, if you're dealing with a Social Security overpayment situation, it's a little trickier to navigate. The first thing you can do is request what's called a waiver. That's basically asking the Social Security Administration to forgive the debt, either because the overpayment wasn't your fault or because paying it back would cause you serious financial hardship. You can also file an appeal if you genuinely think the overpayment calculation is wrong and you don't actually owe the money they're claiming. But here's the reality check. It's not a quick fix. These processes take time, lots of paperwork, and a tremendous amount of patience. And in the meantime, while you're fighting the system, the garnishment might still be happening every month. That's why I always tell people to check your mail religiously, monitor your online Social Security account, and stay ahead of any notices you receive. Don't ignore official-looking letters, even if they seem confusing or scary. Another thing to consider is how this affects your long-term financial planning. If you're approaching retirement age and haven't started claiming your Social Security benefits yet, it might be worth double-checking your records right now. Fixing any potential issues before you start collecting benefits is infinitely easier than dealing with garnishments and appeals after the fact. Prevention is always better than trying to fix a problem after it's already impacting your daily life. This whole situation really highlights a bigger issue with how we manage Social Security and student debt in this country. These aren't just statistics or numbers on a government spreadsheet. These are real people with real lives trying to make ends meet on fixed incomes. When systems change too quickly or without adequate notice, real people get left behind and struggle to keep up. So, what does this mean for you right now? Today, if you're currently receiving Social Security and you've ever had a federal student loan at any point in your life, you need to check your loan status, even if you think it's been paid off or forgiven. It doesn't hurt to double-check. Government records aren't always perfect, and you don't want to be surprised by a garnishment notice. If you've ever received any kind of notice from the Social Security Administration that didn't quite make sense to you, don't ignore it. These notices sometimes go to old addresses or get lost in the shuffle of daily mail. If you're helping a parent or grandparent manage their finances, this might be a good time to sit down with them and look at their benefits summary together. The bottom line is this: knowledge is power when it comes to protecting your financial security. Understanding these changes puts you in a much better position to take action if needed. I know this stuff isn't always easy to hear, but being informed is the first step toward protecting yourself and your family. Thanks for sticking with me through this important information today. If this helped you understand what's happening with Social Security, or if you've got questions or personal experiences to share, please drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your stories often help other viewers who might be going through similar situations. And if you want to stay ahead of changes like this that could affect your finances, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I've got more updates, tips, and breakdowns coming your way, so you won't miss anything important. Take care of yourself out there, and I'll see you in the next video.